Right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are at ThoughtSpots Beyond 2022 at the Wynn Resort in Las Vegas. And we're going to be doing a bunch of interviews here, talking to data experts. And my first guest is Scott Masson from Digital Hive, a man I know well. We've done some work with these folks. Very cool technology that allows you to really synthesize views from different technologies. So you think about, you've got your Tableau, you've got Click, maybe. Lots of companies have multiple BI tools, and they will sometimes show different results for the same report. So let's say it's something as simple as sales, for example. Why would it be different in one than it is in another? Well, there are reasons for that. And one way to figure it out and to kind of get to the bottom of it is to use Digital Hive. And so these folks have created sort of a tapestry that allows you to drag in not just reports and assets from business intelligence tools, but also weather data, videos, links to websites, text annotations, whatever the case may be. It's sort of a meta dashboard that allows you to really get that strategic view of your business. So Scott, with that, is that correct? Did I do it right? Tell me a bit about what you're working on.
That is correct. Some people call us the dashboard of dashboards.
Right, I like that.
You can actually take multiple contents, content types, and bring them all together and to create the one synthesized view of what your operational data is. And if you look at the sales scenario, you could have sales data coming right from Power BI. You could have your operational data in IBM Cognos, and you could have your marketing data from Tableau. Now, an executive or somebody, a business decision maker would actually need to see all that data together. So that's why we were able to bring that pieces of content together from 3 different systems, put them together in a cohesive dashboard, and relay that to the users.
Well, and it sounds simple, but the fact is that to do that in a traditional sense, you would create a sort of dashboard. But I think what I like about your approach is, number one, ease of use. So, and number two, the ability to grab bits and pieces from lots of different systems, right? If you think about the old way of doing that, what we came up with ETL years ago to pull data into a data warehouse, and then we slapped some visualizations on that. And I actually remember when Tableau was first debuted at a TWI conference, I think in 2005? San Diego, I think, was the very first one. And I think I saw the very first public demo of Tableau because it was in an event room that night. They were just setting up. And the guy told me, this is our first time. I'm like, wow. And I remember looking at it going, that's cool. But we've come a long way since then. And what I like about your approach is that you make it very easy to pull in all these different views. And that's great for the user. That's great for the analyst, because then you can very quickly go, okay, sales are up, but there's some interesting marketing stuff happening here. And you're actually connecting to the assets themselves, right? It's not just a screenshot or something. I mean, you can drill through, right?
Exactly. When you bring all these information pieces together into one cohesive dashboard, the users can interact with the data. They can still, they do the drill up, drill down, selections, filterings, all that interactivity still exists for the users. They don't lose any functionality.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you're giving a window into all of these different environments. And again, the key is that the human brain will absorb what it sees, right? You can't see too much at one given time. I think that's been one of the challenges with dashboards over the years, is that, well, I want this stat, I want this metric, I want all this information, and you wind up crowding out the mind's ability to absorb. And I think what you folks have done is sort of simplified that, gotten back to basics, and again, allowed this extra layer on top of all these assets, because typically you will just work in this particular environment, in Click, in Tableau, in some other environment, and that's fine. Yep. That's a view of the world. But to get the meta view where you see that perspective, but also other perspectives, and you can figure out, for example, why these two assets have a different number for the same metric. And that's pretty useful too. It's a troubleshooting facilitator, right?
It could be used for troubleshooting. Typically, your data should be the same unless you're being pulled from different systems. But yes, you can definitely see any anomalies if things are side by side. It's very difficult to find trends and patterns when you have to have one browser tab open for your sales data, then go somewhere else for your marketing data. It's our ability to retain these days is, I think, diminishing, and it's even worse so when you're actually looking at analytics in one source. Maybe a few minutes later, you're looking at somewhere else. You're not going to make the correlation that the numbers might be slightly.
Right, and those little bits of connection being lost are significant, because it's the thread that runs through it, which is the signal that you're using to base your decisions, right? So if you don't have that fluidity across the objects, if you will, your brain isn't going to appreciate the connection, it seems to me.
Correct, and even boiling it down to a simpler use case, having those pieces in front of you at the same time makes your decision-making process that much more efficient because you have the complete view. You know, you're not having to supplement a lack of information with gut feel or just kind of general opinion. You have the raw data, black and white, right in front of you.
Right, and this is live data too.
Exactly.
That's the key, right? We talk about live analytics here at ThoughtSpot. I like this term. I think it makes a lot of sense. And the fact is that any dashboard is typically just going to be a snapshot. It's a view of the world at a particular point in time, and it's really in the movement of data that you start to understand things like trajectory, things like momentum, things of this nature. And I think you're also facilitating that kind of awareness, that kind of observability. Is that right?
Correct. And I mean, we can, you know, we've been hearing a lot this week, the dashboard's dead.
Right.
You know, we can argue the semantics about what death really means. I think it's still on life support. I don't think people are ready to pull the plug on dashboards. There's too many operational dashboards out there. But I think where ThoughtSpot is right when they're saying the dashboard's dead is that the way that people consume information today is a dying, you know, need. You know, if you look at brands like, you know, Uber and things like that, Netflix, they've changed the way people access information and the whole customer experience, user experience. Right. So the way traditional dashboards are built today is they, you know, to save time, they try to cram everything into it. Right. So instead of looking at the 3 or 4 key visualizations that you need, there's probably 15, 20 visualizations in a dashboard, and it's overkill. It's just way too much information. So being able to just cherry pick the very key, you know, salient facts from each one of your systems, bring them together, maybe enhance it with an image or a, you know, PowerPoint document or, you know, weather data, as you were mentioning, that gives users the complete picture now, right? So the dashboard dead, yes, but I'd say, you know, dashboard's dead, but, you know, bring on or long live the storyboard is probably how I'd position that.
And I like the storyboard concept too, because again, anything that you're trying to understand in your business is going to have a trajectory. It's going to have sort of a timeline, right? If your marketing is ramping up, you want the sales to ramp up as much, it's not as much. To be able to see those side by side, and I'm a huge fan of slider bars. Like I just love slider bars because you can then watch things change and see that, you know, it's not, maybe it wasn't a steady incline, maybe it was like this and then it shoots up. So you can see that if you're looking at the motion. You can't see that in a static dashboard. And you know, to your other point about Uber, I think that Uber and several of these other really cool companies in terms of their technology and their impact have in fact fundamentally changed the user experience. And so now it's almost like when you watch movies today and you go try to watch a movie from like the 1980s, and some of them stand up, but a lot of them just don't, because the metaphors are different, the cinematography is different, they're much slower than they are these days, and it's just weird. And I think that's what's happening with data visualization and data exploration. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, you keeping the movies, you look back to the old Star Wars movies. Now the TVs are so much better. You can actually see like little white blocks or the, you know, the different colored blocks behind the spaceships move. And
that's funny.
That's how things don't hold up, because as technology evolves, you can't keep doing things the same way that you always did.
Right.
You have to change with the times. And, you know, going back to the change of user experience, we've done a great job of enhancing analytic capabilities, but we haven't made it easier for users to actually get access to the data. You know, so the traditional workflow today, and Tableau is a great product. You know, ThoughtSpot's a great product, but not everybody can actually create a report or assemble a dashboard. And if there's a, you know, a particular question as a business user you're trying to answer, the workflow now is I have to request access, or I have to, you know, submit a request to IT. They're actually going to build me the workbook or the view or the application that I need, and that could take weeks. And by the time that comes back, it's not relevant anymore. Right. So what we've done now with Digital Hive is the ability now, you know, that question you have might not live in Tableau, but there might be a ThoughtSpot visualization that answers the question. So in a no-code environment, we allow users to drag and drop and drag different elements from different platforms, build their own composite dashboard of all these different views, and let them get on with their business. They don't have to you know, submit that, you know, request to the IT backlog, goes in the black hole for a while, and they can go on with their day.
That's funny. No, that's a good point. And we were talking just yesterday with a bunch of folks about layers of abstraction, right? And that's what you do in the technology world, is you create another layer of abstraction to enable either more fluidity or more agility or transparency or whatever it is. And I love your approach because, again, it's a meta layer. And so what does that mean? You can have this view of the world up here that's looking into all these different assets, and you can just pull this one out, pull that one out. Let's say the license runs out on this particular technology. It's not really a problem for you guys because, again, it's going to be at this higher level that the users are seeing things. And the other thing I'll throw out, I know from talking to one of your clients on a webinar recently, it's great for IT teams and data teams to be able to provision quick views for their users. right? So to your point, not everyone can build a Tableau dashboard very efficiently or some of these other technologies, but a team that learns how to do that can then solve those problems. Maybe it's not complete self-service, and I know that is the end goal, but lots of people are going to need hand-holding, and this allows your team to hold hands all day long, very easily, very quickly, and that improves morale, right?
It does, and the ease of which IT has the luxury to maneuver now is increased because if they're moving an application from say Tableau to ThoughtSpot because they want to offer users the ability to search for data and interact a little more, it's very easy for IT with Digital Hive because all they need to do is just swap out that Tableau visualization with ThoughtSpot. It takes literally 20 seconds, and
Right.
the users have access to a whole new world, a set of capabilities, and they didn't have to do anything different than log into a single interface.
Yeah, and let's face it, users love their tools. I'm the same way, folks. I like my tools. I don't like when my tools change. I don't like when the interface changes on the tools that I own. I'm like, all right, where did it go now? That's one of the problems that I think with cloud is that you're not in charge. I mean, you
Yeah.
arguably weren't in charge before, not really, but just in terms of being able to offer that flexibility, you allow someone to use whichever of these tools, and there's a long list. I mean, it's you've got Tableau, Click, Box, you talk about Google Docs. I mean, there are lots of different technologies, and that's what you find in the real world is every big company has if 80% or all those different things somewhere. And so instead of trying to force users into your view of the world, you can just say, look, your view is great. I'm going to put it next to mine. Let's take a look and see what it means, right?
Well, definitely. And we're talking about completing that, that whole story in a storyboard. Well, all the answers might not live in a BI tool. It could be in a PowerPoint document. It could be in, an image, a PDF, depending on your business. It could be a spreadsheet. So being able to put all those different elements into a single storyboard is really what drives the value for users because now they get the complete picture.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like when you're driving, you've got the rear view mirror, you have it in front of you, you got this mirror, you got that mirror, you can also look around kind of thing. And so in a way, you've sort of enabled that near 360-degree view of whatever scenario there is for the business user, for the analyst, right?
And it's a great analogy because in a car, if you look at the instrumentation, your dashboard, that is, your values, your speed, oil pressure, fuel gauge, those are metrics. So think of those as your BI tools, but your mirrors is context, right? If you're looking at a speedometer and it says, 100 miles an hour, that might be fast. But
Right.
if your context is you're on the Autobahn, that's probably not that fast,
Right.
right? If you're 100 miles an hour in a parking lot, that's, again, having the context, you're in trouble.
Yeah,
But
that's
before
right.
it's too late. Right?
Yeah,
So,
that's funny. And I was thinking to myself too, one of the other cool things that you folks have done at Digital Hive is this branded experience, right? Now we've had embedded analytics for years, for a long, long time now. It's getting much more popular now, obviously, because it's a lot easier to do. These things used to be pretty difficult to pull off. Now it's pretty easy to do, but there is something to be said for being able to quickly build out it's not just a dashboard, it's like a marshaling area for information and action items. So instead of trying to build out another console from your ERP or some other type of system like that, you can build this marshaling area that has not just information, not just charts and so forth, but functionality built into it. And so now that becomes the console through which the business user operates every day. And I know for sure it annoys me to no end when I have to hop from one application to another. Oh, got to grab this piece of text from over here, paste it over there. That all takes time. That's workflow, and it's just impeding the process of getting things done. So I think that, and you do this as a branded experience. So let's say it's a particular hotel chain. To the user, it just looks like a web page that they go to, and that's great because they don't need to know what's under the covers as long as it works, right?
Exactly. And you're talking branding and users love their tools, but every tool looks different. And you're going from tool A to tool B to tool C. With what we do and how we're doing it now is I can actually build an entire application that brings all these tools together, but does it in such a way that it looks like it's an integrated part of your application, right? It just looks like an extension of your website or extension of your corporate applications. It doesn't make the user feel like they're jumping through another hoop to get access to data.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool because no one wants to jump through hoops.
No.
Right?
Well, no, and you're kind of exasperating the fact that, you're highlighting and putting a laser light on the fact that you have multiple tools now when you're making your users log into all these different tools to get access to data.
Right. Well, let's maybe close on that because single sign-on is so important. I talk to developers, I talk to business people all the time. I know in my own life, I'm so tired, especially two-factor authentication. If you're like trying to set something up, it's like with Apple, like, okay, go look at one of your other devices. I'm like, that device is downstairs. I got to go downstairs now to look at my computer for 1 second to come back up. Logging in is a pain in the rear is the bottom line, but it's important, and you have to have security, and you folks are able to leverage all the security in the back end of all these different tools, right?
Correct. And what we find is the more tools you have, the more systems you have to log into, the less users are going to use all those systems, right? They're going to go to the ones that they think are the best for them or they're more familiar with.
That's
and
funny.
Meanwhile, you're developing all this content, spending money to, beef up content in Tableau, for example. And if users aren't going there and can't access the content, then what value is it really driving? And that's what Digital Hive does, is we don't require you to federate all your security across one system. We can actually individually work with all the different platforms, do single sign-on with ThoughtSpot, do username and password with Tableau, doing OAuth authentication with Google or Power BI. All those work at the same time. And when a user logs in, what we do is we will actually seamlessly log them into all the platforms under the covers. So that means they get access to all their data, and they don't have to worry about managing that login dance across systems.
I mean, and that's a simple thing. It's complex to pull off, but it sounds simple, but it is so important. I'll make an analogy to clicking on links, and I do a lot of email marketing, I do a lot of digital marketing, and I know for sure that every time you ask the user to click one more time, you're going to lose about 50% of your audience. Yep. And so you got 100 people coming in, they click. You go to this landing page. If you make them click again, now you're down to 50. You make them click a third time, 25. Fourth time, 12. Fifth time, 6. If you're asking them to click 5 times, guys, don't do that.
It's all resistance. It's all obstacles and barrier to adoption. Is you're putting more challenges, more things the user has to do, and it slows down your ability to actually drive value off your investments.
That's right. You want a nice smooth transition, so you're logging into all those systems. You're giving the strategic view. I really love this, and it's interesting. It's kind of a new space, but I think it's very compelling because, again, it allows you to see through multiple lenses simultaneously, almost like a kaleidoscope, even though that kind of obscures things, but it's fun to use a kaleidoscope. Yeah. But you give these views into the different worlds, and then you can drag things in, drag things out, change it, whatever, and it's a live view of the business right now or wherever you're going, right?
It is, and that's, that was our intent starting out to build the product on our journey, was to solve the challenge of having multiple systems to deal with, users not wanting to use these different tools, and, trying to remove that security, impedance of having to log into multiple tools all the time.
Yeah, that's right. Well, folks, look these guys up online. Digital Hive is the name of the company. Scott Masson, Mason, I should say, Masson. And we'll talk to you next time, folks. Next interview is coming up soon.